Here's an explanation for how to do this part of your lab. So the first thing you notice is you have all these pictures of the heart. These are the different stages of the cardiac cycle. So you want to use this section of your notes. Here are those pictures with the names and descriptions of the phase of the cardiac cycle. Now remember, you have the atria contract first, then the ventricles contract. That's the basics of the heartbeat. So the next thing you're going to do for this lab is match these up to an EKG. And you have that here in your notes. So on your paper, you need to get a separate sheet of blank paper. Notice these pictures of the heart are not in order. So you need to cut them out and then tape them onto your paper in order. Then underneath that, draw your picture of the EKG and match up the pictures of the heart in the different stages of the cardiac cycle to the parts of the EKG. The other thing you have on your lab is this graph. This graph is also in your notes. Here is the graph in your notes. Now in your notes, we had one for skeletal muscle and one for cardiac muscle because we were comparing them. In your lab, you just have the cardiac one. Look at the difference between these. Look at what's in your lab. You have 2 copies of the cardiac one in your lab. So a lot of times students are confused by this. Why did I give you 2 copies of it? The reason for 2 is, remember, the atria contract, then the ventricles contract. So the first one is for the atria, the second one is for the ventricles. So go back to this page of your notes and review this. Remember, you have depolarization, then you have plateau, then you have repolarization. The blue line shows the electric events: depolarization, plateau, repolarization. The red line shows what the muscle's doing. So the blue line is what's happening electricity. The red line is what's happening as far as the contraction. So here you have muscle contraction, and notice that happens at the same time as plateau. So plateau and contraction occur. Then you have repolarization, and during repolarization, the muscle starts to relax. So you're going to match up these with your cardiac cycle also. So remember, the atria contract during their plateau. So right here is plateau, right here is atria contracting. So you're going to take your atrial systole picture from up here, and it's going to match up with this section. Also, the P wave is what shows us atrial depolarization. So the P wave in your EKG matches with this, the atrial depolarization. And then over here is where you'll do your ventricles. So you have ventricle depolarization, that is the QRS complex. Then you have ventricle plateau and systole. So this section, the ventricle plateau and the ventricle systole, will match up with the ST segment and the picture of the heart up here that shows the ventricle in systole.